Hey there, my name's Drew Brashler, and in this video, I want to talk to you about getting your Behringer WING controlling the Behringer Flow 4 VIO with the phantom and the gain settings of the Flow 4 VIO. Now, if you're brand new to my channel, I'm all about helping you feel more confident with your production gear, no matter where you're starting from. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, like I was saying, you can now control the Flow 4V and the Flow 4 VIO over StageConnect with controlling the preamp gain and the phantom power from the Behringer WING. Now, last month, Behringer released version 3.1.1 for the Behringer WING. Now, if you haven't updated, go to Behringer's site, pull up your specific WING model, because the firmware update is dependent on what model you have. If you have the old gray full-size WING or the new black full-size WING, that is the full size. It's the same firmware file for both of those. If you have the WING Compact, like I have on my desk here, the WING Compact firmware file is specific, as well as the rack has its own specific firmware update file. So go to Behringer's site, pull up the product page for your specific mixer that you have, and then you can go down into the downloads and find version 3.1.1. Now, for the Flow 4V and the 4VIO, what you'll need to do is you'll need to navigate to that product page and then download SimplyPut, which I have another video on how to update those, which I'll put down in the description below. But once you have your Behringer WING updated as well as your Flow 4 VIO, you can go ahead and connect the StageConnect to it, and then we can actually do some routing inside of our WING. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my routing, and I'm going to go to Sources and pull up the source group of StageConnect. Once we are here, we will see that we have our little 4 VIO sitting down in the left-hand corner. Now, what's great about this is that this unit is a 32-bit recorder, meaning that when you plug this into a computer or the Flow 4V, it is recording a 32-bit signal, which gives you a massive amount of headroom. Now, the Behringer WING, in terms of this, basically takes that 32-bit signal and uses a preamp kind of to select the area of range of our actual signal. So changing the preamp here on the WING does not actually change the actual preamp gain of the Flow 4 VIO. It is basically taking a preamp and moving that selection over that entire range of the 32-bit input of the 4 VIO. So if you do happen to have this connected into a computer, like I do, we will be able to still record a 32-bit signal into our 1, 2, 3, and 4 inputs on the front of this unit. So as far as the computer is seeing this, or if you have a Flow 4V, it is still going to be getting that full range of recording, but the WING needs to know what we're actually messing around with. And so that's why we have an actual preamp gain now to be able to select what portion of that signal that we want to be listening to for our actual input. Now, if we go and select our first input here, we have our gain knob, and it can go down to -4 all the way up to positive 55 dB of gain. Now, again, this is just selecting what this is actually listening to for the input, because it is still a 32-bit input, but the WING can't really process that inside of the mixer. So you still have to select that range of gain. So that's what our gain knob is doing here. But then the other portion of this is we now have phantom power control directly from our mixer. And as we can see over here, I have enabled phantom power on my mic input 1. And if I wanted to do that on my mic input 2, I can go ahead and select my input 2, and I can go ahead and press +48, and then that will activate the phantom power on that. So at this point, if we want to, we can take a microphone, which I have sitting right here, and this is a condenser microphone, so it does require phantom power. I'm going to plug it into mic 3, and let's actually route these sources to our channels here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my channels view, and I'm going to go to channel 1, unlock, make sure that +1 auto is selected, and I have my source group as StageConnect, and I'm just going to go ahead and route all of these channels. Now, you'll notice that there are 8 inputs coming from our Flow 4 VIO. Now, 4 of those would be inputs 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then there's actually USB connectivity on this unit that I can plug in my computer into this and actually output 4 tracks of audio over StageConnect to the Wing. And so I'll talk about that here in a little bit in this video. But with my StageConnect, I'm going to go ahead and select my input 1 here, and if we go over and select our channel and go into our input view, we can see all of our gain settings that we have here. But this microphone is plugged into my input 3, so let's go ahead and pull up my channel 3 here, and I'm going to activate phantom power, and at this point, it's going to mute the input, and then once that voltage has actually powered this microphone, it will then unmute that, basically a couple seconds. And then at this point, we can go ahead and start adjusting the gain up and down to set our preamp level to be correct. So as I talk into this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And as we can see, I can go straight into clipping if I want to, or I can have way too less of gain here. But remember, with the Behringer WING, our nominal level that we want to be hitting is between -24 and -18 dBFS. So this little meter here is in dB full scale, meaning that 0 is the clipping point. So if we raise this up, we want to make sure that we're getting our signal up into that -24 to -20 range on this meter here. So check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which we can see that that little orange LED right there basically turns on at -18 dBFS, which is still a great signal. But if you're utilizing all 48 channels of your board, my suggestion is to lower that nominal gain to around that -24, -20 mark. That way, when you add in all of your 48 channels together, you're not going to be clipping your output of your Wing. So now that we have this set here, let's go ahead and turn this up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we can hear this. Now, what's great is I have 4 inputs coming from this Flow 4 VIO over StageConnect, which can then connect into the back of our Wing. Now, StageConnect can do a total of 32 channels over an XLR cable. Now, it's suggested to be a DMX-style cable, and it can go up to 40 meters in length from the Wing to the last device. Now, if you need to go farther than that, there is a new SCRE, which I will link down in the description below, that basically allows you to put that in the middle and extend that range up to 80 meters in length, which is very, very far. So with this, I have this connected with a normal XLR cable because this is just right here in my studio. It's not going very far. But if you're planning on using some of those longer links, you'll want to make sure that you're using a 110 ohm rated DMX or data style XLR cable. So in this case, I have my 4 channels of my Flow 4 VIO coming into these 4 channels here on the Wing. But what about that USB connectivity that I was talking about? Well, with the Flow 4 VIO, there is that USB connection on the unit. And you can actually plug that into any computer. It is a core audio compliant unit, meaning that it will work natively with Apple. If you use Windows, then you'll want to make sure that you're installing the driver for it. But this will give us multi-channel audio coming into my laptop here. Now I have my computer plugged into this Flow 4 VIO, and my USB cable is giving me 8 channels of audio into my computer, and then 4 channels of audio from my computer back to this unit to go back to my Wing. And when you add up the 4 inputs, that's 8 channels of audio coming to my Wing and 8 channels of audio from my Wing going to this unit. But 4 of those channels will actually route through to the computer. So let me explain here, because this can get a little bit confusing. But the first 4 channels of audio coming from this unit to my laptop are the 4 inputs on the 4 VIO, meaning that my inputs of this microphone being connected into this mic input 3 would show up on track 3 on my computer. And we can see that if I tap on this microphone, we can see that that is right here. Now, one thing I want to mention to you is that my Wing has preamp control, but my computer is going to be recording the 32-bit audio, not from the preamp. So if I crank this and I start clipping this input, we will notice that my audio over here on my computer hasn't really changed. And if I turn this all the way down, my audio still hasn't changed because this computer is recording the full dynamic range of the 32-bit, whereas my Wing is needing to set that preamp level as kind of a trim, but a very, very large dynamic range of a trim. So if you clip your inputs on your Wing, don't worry, the audio is still perfect. So like I was saying, we have our 4 inputs. So here's input 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then on inputs 5 through 8, this is where our routing gets pretty interesting, because on the Flow 4 VIO, there are 2 headphone jacks. And so if I pull up my routing and then go to outputs and go to my StageConnect, and I pull up my output 1, this is what's routing from my Wing to the left side of headphone port 1. So let me pull up my oscillator, and I'm going to start assigning this here. So here is a sine wave on output 1 and output 2 and output 3 and 4. Now, if I had some headphones connected into this, I would be able to adjust the volume going from my Wing on 1 and 2 being my headphone port 1 and 3 and 4 being my headphone port 2, giving you a great monitoring solution for maybe a tracks player or an MD, that sort of thing. This is actually my favorite type of setup for a keys player that's also doing tracks, because not only could you plug in both sets of keyboards if you had 2, or 1 keyboard and maybe 1 mono keyboard and then an MD mic on 4, but then we can also get 4 channels of tracks coming from our computer through this interface all the way to the Wing over that StageConnect cable, and then also in-ear monitoring over my headphone ports, which is crazy. But the last thing that I want to mention is 5 through 8, and I'm going to show my input 5 here on StageConnect. Once I route audio to my 5, we can see over on my computer, we have full audio coming in right here. And then here is 6, and let's do pink noise on 7 and 8. So we can see that I have my tone coming in on input 5 and 6, and then pink noise is on 7 and 8. Now this is pretty cool, because this could bring in a lot of different things. You could interface a video computer and actually route your SMPTE timecode through StageConnect and have it come in over your USB line coming into the computer. So those of you who are using like Resolume, for instance, you could input that SMPTE timecode over this StageConnect through our 4 VIO into our computer, which is a pretty cool thing. And you can also use your outputs 1 and 2 for the headphone for that Resolume op. So that's one example of something that you can do with this. Now, as far as channels coming back to our Wing, if I go back to my sources here, remember we have our 4 inputs here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, but then we also have 4 outputs coming from my computer into StageConnect on 5, 6, 7, and 8. So on my computer here, I have routed this output of tracks stereo 1 and 2 to my outputs 1 and 2 on the actual unit. So if I pull up my routing matrix, so view and then routing matrix, and give this a little bit more space, we can see that my tracks stereo 1 and 2 is routed to my stereo 1. So if I went ahead and deleted this, we would notice that we no longer have audio coming in on 5 and 6. Now, if I go ahead and route this to my stereo 1 and 2 again, just like that, we will then see that I have audio coming in on 1 and 2. And if we wanted to, we could go ahead and select this and change this to be stereo. And then on our channels, obviously, because this is stereo, we can get rid of one of these channels. So then I can go 7 and 8 and then remove that. So now I have my tracks 1 and 2 here. And then my tracks 3 is this one right here. So here is my tracks mono 3, which is output 3. So remember, on the output side, it's 1, 2, 3, and 4 that comes into our Wing as 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then my last channel is actually my click track. So if I press play on this, we will start seeing that I have a metronome here. So again, this is a really cool setup. You have a single unit that has 4 channels with full preamp and phantom power control. You also have a USB audio interface built into this same thing that you can get 4 tracks of audio coming from your laptop into this and being sent to the wing. So not only can we record the 4 channels that are being plugged into this, but we can also get audio from our wing coming back to our computer, which is a really, really cool setup. There are a lot of different ways that I'm sure that you guys are thinking in your minds of different ways that we can utilize this. Tracks rig, video playback. There's a whole bunch of different options here. Now, I hope this video was helpful for you today. If you do happen to have any questions, or there's a video that you're hoping that I would make on the Wing or the Flow 4V, or really any production equipment that's out there, please post that in the comment section down below, as I'm always reading through those comments to find videos that are going to be helpful for you. If you haven't already, make sure to check out my website at drewbrashler.com. I actually just launched a brand new piece of software and a plugin that is a meter for decibels. So you can read SPL or decibels off of a measurement mic that you put into your wing and then send over to your computer, either in Wave Super Rack Performer or a DAW like Reaper. So those of you who are recording your multi-track audio, you could send your measurement mic into your computer, get that sent over to your laptop, and then you can calibrate that plugin meter. And then basically what will happen is inside of your DAW or VST host, you can have this DBB SPL meter is what I call it, as a plugin on that channel. And then you can then be reading accurate dB measurements through that plugin with your measurement microphone once you calibrate it. So if you want to check out more about that, go over to drewbrashler.com. It works on both Mac and Windows. So that is my little plug for myself here. I'm pretty excited about that plugin, to be honest. It also works as a standalone piece of software. So if you're not doing any VST plugins or multi-track recording, you can use that as a standalone piece of software. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day.